session of the PMV webinar series. Before our speaker starts, I've got just a few housekeeping details that I would like to share with our listeners. All listeners today have a muted line, and if you have a question to our speaker about his presentation or any issues with how you're viewing the presentation itself, please go to the question and answer section on the webinar control panel at the right of your screen. All questions will be held until the end and addressed by the speaker during the Q&A session. I will now hand presenter status over to our speaker. Again, I would like to welcome you once more to the Product Management View webinar series. I'm Chelsea Woodhead from RIMA Technology Solutions, one of the sponsors of this webinar series, and I will be your moderator. It is my pleasure to introduce Sai Al-Hur, who will be giving the presentation Scrum 101 during today's webinar. Sai is a practitioner with Net Objectives. He has over 2 decades of experience in all aspects of software development, with a proven performance record in aligning business and technology using industry-recognized and organization-tailored Lean, Agile, and other best practices. He focuses on transforming organizations by cultivating effective communities of practices. He is commonly categorized as an essentialist and resultant who is measured by stickiness. As a consultant, he focuses on what is essential for achieving results, where he is measured by the sustainability of his influence. He is deeply committed to working with individuals, teams, and organizations to actualize their potential and achieve an enduring competitive advantage. And with no further ado, I will be handing the microphone over to Sai himself. Sai?
Hello. Let me just go ahead here and take the presentation, and there we go. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity with RIMA here to be presenting, and likewise appreciate you folks taking the time. Without too much more to say, really, from an introduction perspective, one of the key things we want to focus on in this webinar is really looking at Scrum, looking at product management in general, and then the integration of the two as they come together. And without too much more to say there, let's dive right in and talk about Scrum a little bit. Just one other comment that I'd like folks to keep in mind. There's a good number of references at the end of the presentation, so I'll kind of move fairly quickly and not mention the references themselves. Also, as we're going through this, I'm going to focus on the practical issues of Scrum and product management, and definitely not all the details. One of the major things about Scrum, and as you begin to implement Scrum within an organization, is that you really want to focus on the principles and the values, as we'll see, not merely the practices. So looking at Scrum, basically Scrum is a process framework. As a process framework, it really does focus on roles, artifacts, and practices. And being a framework, it's very much a wrapper for product engineering and product delivery practices. The value of Scrum is in that it really enables a lean, agile, and competitive approach to product management and product development. Before we dive into more detail, let's look at the roots of Scrum. And if we can go back to a paper that was published in 1986 that really emphasized a couple things. One, it emphasized speed, and two, it emphasized flexibility in operating within a competitive marketplace. The other key aspects that the paper emphasized is that when we're developing products, we really want to take on a holistic kind of rugby approach rather than a sequential, more relay kind of approach. In that perspective, then, we can really go ahead and accelerate our delivery of value into the marketplace. So this paper really began to launch the Scrum movement and formalize it as such with Ken Schwaber and others. As then we look at more the modern roots of Scrum, we can look at the Agile Alliance's Manifesto for Software Development. Here, if we take a look at the manifesto as stated in 2001, basically we see that there's really 4 major statements where one piece of the statement is emphasized relative to another piece. In particular, we notice that individuals and interactions are emphasized over processes and tools, working software over